the idyllic beauty of the French countryside. There is a peace, a calm that bathes Normandy, that belies the horrors that once raged here. A war that claimed not just countless lives, but left mysteries buried deep in the earth and swallowed up by time. This is one of those stories of brave souls who flew into danger, never to return, never to be found, just lost. Al Pelkey lost his half-brother, Ben, to the Second World War, a man he barely knew, last saw when he was maybe 10 years old, but a man he thinks of often, especially at this time of year.
I try to imagine what it would have been like flying in those days and the conditions they flew under.
Ben Prophet was Al's much older brother, an adult with a job as a logger on the BC coast, a grown man who shared hobbies with the little kid who sometimes came to visit.
We lived in Vancouver. He lived in a remote logging community called Half Moon Bay. So, although I did spend time there during my school holidays, and I remember going out fishing with him.
But the fishing trips stopped when Ben left to train as a flight sergeant in the Air Force, ended up an air gunner overseas. He was supposed to serve and come back to British Columbia, but Ben disappeared without a trace.
I have memories of my mother getting telegrams when he went missing and her being very upset about it. Not good. She had a lot of crying, bad news thing, especially because I'm not sure what the length of time was from the time he was reported missing until he was presumed dead. And she wrote a lot of letters to government agencies trying to find out more.
A few details did turn up, including this initial report about an aircraft with the code name LJ850, taking off from Fairford Base in England, but unable to give cause for failure to return. It happened during the night of June 17th, 18th, 1944. The crew was from 620 Squadron of the RAF, an international crew as it turned out, including 3 Brits, an Aussie captain, and 2 Canadians, John Clasper and Ben Prophet. And the report confirmed the aircraft. The Stirling, a British-made heavy 4-engine bomber. It was a pretty fast plane at low altitude, but performed poorly higher up, making it vulnerable on both counts. So, by late 1943, 620 Squadron was flying Stirlings mostly to transport paratroopers and supplies. Decades passed, and little more was learned about what happened to Ben, until Al put some newfound computer skills to work. And slowly, a little more information surfaced.
It was engaged on a special operations duty carrying 15 parachutists of the Special Air Service Regiment to a drop zone in France, which was in enemy-occupied territory. And the consensus of opinion seems to be that they went down in the channel after aborting their mission. I felt that somebody somewhere must know something.
Tony Graves relishes mysteries. An aviation archaeologist who has dug up dozens of warplanes in his native England. He now lives in France, where inevitably he's been finding even more relics of war.
You can see here the corrosion, but hopefully when I get this cleaned up there might even be a number on it. And this is just one of the, what we call a D handle, which is the handle you use to pull to release the parachute.
His latest discovery? Burned, corroded fragments out of history that both intrigue and help clear up a decades-old confusion.
The main thing is the 9mm ammunition. and the 2 Bren gun magazines, and the Sten gun magazine, which was destined for the Maquis down in Dijon.
You see, Tony had become aware of an old wartime story, a tale out of one particular village in Normandy about a plane that fell burning from the night sky, ending up in a farmer's field. The farm itself was eventually named for the date of the crash, June 18th, 1944. More than 7 decades later, livestock still graze in the field. The village church still stands nearby. But eyewitnesses are few. Tony did track down a now elderly man named Lucien. As a boy, he had lived near the church.
And he explains here that the aircraft came in the direction over here, as it says, it's flambé, in flames, around the church in flames, and came down right at this spot behind me. He explains afterwards that no one could get near because the bullets and bits and pieces were singing off all over the place. We know after the war that local children used to play in the bits and pieces that were laying all around here.
Thing is, the villagers always assumed the plane was American. It wasn't until Tony got permission to really scour the site that he realized their mistake. The ammunition he found, the chunks of plane he was able to dig up by hand, all the clues, in fact, pointed to a British aircraft.
As soon as we found the first bullet, I knew it was British, and then of course that fired my imagination, it's British, and the thought of all those people that were lost, to get some closure and find out what's happened to their remains.
Tony knew there was much, much more to uncover deep underground, but more than that, he wanted to put a name to the plane and faces to the airmen who perished.
Hi, Wendy.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
Long time no see.
I know.
Back in Delta, BC, Al Pelkey has a visitor. Wendy Gust is a niece who wrote Ottawa for her uncle's war records. Nosy, she says, about the family history.
Because nobody knew what happened. It wasn't just Ben that was lost, it was so many of them, and it was just phenomenal when I went to Runnymede.
Her passion even took her to Runnymede in England, to the memorial which honors the more than 20,000 airmen who went missing and have no known graves. Ben's name is inscribed there. But it's a point bothersome for her. Nobody knows where his Stirling ended up, and so Ben Prophet has no final resting place.
No, nothing. Absolutely nothing. I don't know, it'd be nice if there was some kind of a acknowledgement. I think a need for acknowledgement and a place. I really do. I think, like I said before, just a place.
It's been more than 7 decades and counting, and closure for Wendy and Al still feels a long way off.
I don't imagine there'd be anything left at the bottom of the English Channel.
Overseas, Tony Graves had a date to work with, June 18th. And physical evidence from that farmer's field clues that he was looking for a British plane on a mission to supply the French resistance. War records told him 3 Allied warplanes disappeared on that date, but only one fit his findings.
I have no doubt that this is the last resting place of LJ850, the missing Stirling, here in this field.
This is LJ850, a rare, blurry image of the plane, missing no longer. And this is perhaps the only image of the plane and its doomed crew. Second from the left, that's right, Flight Sergeant Ben Prophet. But really, these 2 photos tell only part of the tragic story. LJ850 was indeed on a covert SAS operation that June night. So along with the arms and ammo destined for resistance fighters, there was a full complement of paratroopers on board. And that means a total of as many as 23 young lives were lost when the Stirling crashed.
And the thing now is, what would be nice for me is to excavate this area here. If there's any remains here, the police will be called and they'll have a proper burial instead of laying under a field where cows are tramping all over them.
Tony recently confirmed his discovery with underground imaging and that it's safe to dig for the large chunks of airplane buried deep, pieces that can't just be excavated by hand. But so far, the permit has been blocked. He hopes that by drawing attention to his find, others will voice their support, families, governments, so that finally a sad chapter can be closed.
It's important to me for the families. I mean, they've been waiting all this time, not knowing where their loved ones had died. They've just disappeared into the ether. And perhaps if this thing is done and we can put a memorial down by the road, they can come out and find out where their loved ones crashed.
In Delta, we share images of Tony's discovery with Al Pelkey and Wendy Gust.
Oh my. They found it? Oh my. It didn't go down in the water.
The brother, the niece, who have craved answers for so long.
So this is all just bits and pieces of the aircraft.
What about human remains? Did they find anything?
Well, one mystery at a time. For now, on this Remembrance Day, they have news that may bring peace of mind that's been elusive for decades.
Well, it would certainly give us closure, wouldn't it, where it went down?
And for Wendy, perhaps, the beginning of another chapter in the family history.
I'd love to go. Oh, it would just be fascinating to know that's where the end of the story comes for Ben. You know, and that's, it's important. They deserve to be known what happened.
Flight Sergeant Ben Prophet, just one among so many Canadians lost to war. Lost, but now found, and one day maybe coming home.